All right, welcome everybody. Hey everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome. Welcome everybody. We've got everyone joining in here. Amazing. You can have your video on if you like. It's completely up to you, but we love seeing your faces when we're sharing. So great to see everyone joining on in. Oh, lots of familiar faces here too, which is fantastic. All right, so just while we're getting a few more people gathering, but just before we get underway, can you share where you are in the world and also what you do creatively, right? Where you are in the world and what you do creatively. That would be fantastic. Just while we gather, share that in the chat. Okay, you will notice that everyone is muted, so it'll just be Jess and I off mute today, but we're going to be getting you to share things in the chat. Amazing. Fantastic. Cool. All right, so everyone's sharing in the chat where they are in the world and what they get up to creatively. What sort of creative business do you have? Awesome. All right, so Vanessa, Yukon, Canada. Cool. What full-time artist making jewelry, textiles, illustrations, which sell to retail stores. Amazing. Love it. Karen, you Boston. I love that. Illustration. Melissa, Seattle, designer, illustrator. Elena, Serbia. Hey, Elena, nice to see you. Love that. Fantastic. Licensing, illustration, custom design. London. Oh, fantastic. I love it. Graphic designer and illustrator. The Elisa. Alan, Buffalo, New York, love it. Illustration, service, pattern design. Beth, Baltimore, graphic designer branching into illustration. So if you're just joining us, we're just sharing where in the world you are and also what you get up to creatively, if you can share in the chat. And then we're going to be getting underway very, very soon. Hey, Paulo, good to see you. Christchurch, New Zealand, artist, printmaker, and illustration artist. Awesome, amazing. Sweden, graphic design, illustration. I love that. Amazing. So great seeing where everyone is from. Amy from Netherlands. Fantastic. So many people here and just so exciting to see all the different things that people get up to in the creative space as well. And hey, we've got people all over the world. So those of you that it is the evening, I know some people here will be getting late into the evening. Some of you, it is very early in the morning even. So fantastic. Awesome. All right. So while we're just getting underway, if you don't know, you're probably catching already. Well, where are you from, Logan? I'm a New Zealander, for those of you that don't know. That is the funny accent, so there we go. But I'm actually in Colombia at the moment, but I spend a lot of time between Europe and the States. I'm generally running my businesses remotely, which is fantastic. So what we're going to do, I think we're going to get underway. So I'll hand over to Jess so we can get introduced and get into it. Amazing.
Hi guys, I'm Jess of Jess Miller Draws. I'm a graphic designer and illustrator, and I specialize in character portraits, hand lettering, and I just like lost my train of thought. Hand lettering, surface pattern design, and character portraits. Yeah, I'm so excited to be here today to talk about confidence in your creative business with Logan. So yeah. Cheers. Hand it back over to Logan.
Amazing. So good. And for those of you that have never hosted on Zoom, we've got like bells ringing in our ears as everyone's entering. It's so great. So it's so exciting to hear everyone just gathering. So welcome if you've just joined us. So we're going to get underway. So look, Jess and I have worked together. I've been her creative business coach throughout this year. We actually connected earlier this year, I think it was, and had a great conversation. And Jess was like, "Hey, I'd love to get some support in my creative business." So look, I'm going to share basically a bit about myself, and then we're going to be launching into all about confidence in creative business, because this is such an essential skill, and we're going to talk more about why it's a skill and those things as well. Fantastic. So my background, as I've already mentioned, I am a New Zealander. I'm a Kiwi. That's what we're sometimes referred to as. And my background is that I had my own creative business for 11 years. Something that I ran in New Zealand, took it New Zealand wide, built up a team, and then eventually sold the business. Now, my time during running a creative business was kind of interesting, because I also, right at the start, got my business masters of entrepreneurship, because I was passionate, or I am passionate, about the intersection of creative arts and business. Right? I think these are two really interesting areas, and a lot of people struggle with those two things, blending them together. So I was really passionate about that. So I decided to learn more at a master's level. And then whilst I was running my creative company in New Zealand, I then got involved in lots of different programs and universities at a teaching level. So people started asking me to mentor, to teach in this creative business space. I worked with a lot of university programs across New Zealand up to a master's level as well, lecturing, teaching, facilitating, mentoring, all of the good things. And then over the years, I started doing some more coaching, mentoring, sort of privately as well, and eventually built my own programs. And then these days I focus full-time on helping awesome people grow their creative businesses under the brand Flammable Entrepreneur. You might have seen that come up a few times on emails, which is fantastic. So these days I'm full-time. Look, my clients, the clients we work with, they're kind of mostly visual creative. So like 95% are in the visual creative space. They're the illustrators, they're muralists, they're graphic designers. They're very much in that visual space. And a lot of them understand that challenge of blending business and creativity as well. And that's where I really, really help people to grow. And about half of the people that we work with are like just starting out. Right, they're like, hey, maybe I've got a job, a full-time job, and I'm like freelancing, or I've got some business on the side. And ideally, I'd love to maybe leave that job one day, Logan. That would be awesome. So part of it is that, helping them to actually grow that business on the side to help them eventually leave their job. The other half of clients I work with are like, hey, I'm already in business. I've been doing this for 6 months or even a number of years, but it's challenging and I want to grow to that next level. So really helping them usually get towards that 10K revenue mark per month, really supporting them to effectively grow their business. And then occasionally I also work with awesome people like Jess who are in that space too, but they've also built a big following too. So, actually about 10% of the people I work with are more similar to Jess with a big following, but, still wanting to grow in that business as well. So hence how Jess and I met and connected and helped her grow her business this year. All right, so I'm going to jump straight into it because I'm super excited about this topic. And Jess and I were really like, what could we be doing around this topic of confidence? Because it's kind of, we were looking at what people need. We're always looking at, okay, what do people need to hear about? And this is a big one. For every area of your creative business, you need to increase your confidence. So it doesn't matter whether you're talking about your creative skills, that doesn't matter whether you're talking about your marketing or having to do that salesy stuff. Like everywhere, it's about boosting your confidence. So hence why we thought we would go through that topic. So we're going to be taking you through 5 areas of confidence, and I'm going to be sharing each area, and Jess is going to be sharing some thoughts as well as we go through. Now, towards the end, we are going to be sharing, we're going to be having some time for questions. Okay, so any questions that you've got could be related to confidence, or it could be just in general. You're welcome to pop them in the chat at any time. Also, if you have any comments or you wanted to share things in the chat, you're really enjoying what you're hearing, then you can put comments in the chat as well. So feel free to keep that chat alive during as well. Awesome, welcome if you've just joined us. So we're going to be diving right in. So look, confidence is a really interesting thing because some people just say, oh, I'm just not a confident person, or like, oh yeah, I've always been a confident person. And I totally get that. That's something, some people just naturally feel more confident than others. However, what we've got to realize is that confidence is also just a skill. Okay, so anyone from wherever you are at, you can raise your level of confidence, right? You can take it from wherever it is. If you feel like you're someone with low confidence or with high, you can always increase it to another level, right? It is a skill, just like learning how to do your creative abilities or work on how to market your business or work on your Instagram, whatever that is. You can also work on your confidence as a skill as well. And it's a really essential thing to think about. So the first concept around confidence we're going to share is all about learning from failures. Okay, learning from failures, because this is really, really interesting. A lot of us have these odd relationships with failure, and I hear it with our clients, I hear it with people I speak to who say, hopefully everything will go okay, right? When I try and grow my business or take things to the next level, hopefully there'll be no things in the way. There'll be no failures. Fingers crossed, I'll get everything right. Luck will be on my side, and hopefully nothing will go wrong. And then when something goes wrong, it's like, why me? Oh, I'm so unlucky. This is so unfair, all of those things. Now, the thing I'm going to share with you all, there is going to be failures. There's going to be challenges. Every single one of you is going to experience that. So the first thing we need to do is actually change our relationship with failure. And rather than hoping, fingers crossed, it won't happen to me, it's going, It's going to happen. I'm going to have some failures. I'm going to have some stuff ups. I'm going to make some mistakes along this journey, right? I'm doing my best. I'm trying to do it all right where possible, but actually failure is part of the journey. And not only will I say that failure is something that's going to happen, it's also actually essential, right? This is very strange, this piece. It's essential. What are you talking about, Logan? What do you mean failure is essential? No, we want to avoid failure. It's like, no, okay, ideally, I'm not saying make mistakes on purpose. I'm saying they're going to happen, but when they come, the key is to learn from them and to focus on what those learnings are, because that is actually going to make you stronger and better off in the end. Okay, so the things that you learn when you fail are going to be the lessons that you take into the future of your business, right? So if you never experience any failure, it probably means that A, you're not pushing things hard enough and you're keeping in your comfort zone, but also you're not learning that much, right? Because often it's failures where we learn the most, which I know can be hard. And when you're in the middle of it, whether it's a failure or a challenge or an obstacle, when you're in the middle of it, it's really tough, but we've got to change that relationship and instead go, hey, here it is. Whew, there's what Logan was talking about. He didn't say it was all going to be easy and, you know, hopefully this, hopefully that. It's like, oh, here it is. So it shows you, okay, well, maybe I'm really pushing things. And what can I learn from this? Again, I had a client who, failed, had a failure recently where it cost them a bit of money, but actually that was a great learning for their future. All right, so in the next few years, they're going to avoid making that failure and probably avoid losing a lot more money, which is what could have happened. So really, really powerful, this idea of relationship with failure. So I'll hand over to you, Jess, just in case you had some extra comments, thoughts around this from your own journey too. We'd love to hear.
Yeah, sure. I've failed many, many times. And I know that a lot of people are like, yeah, but on your Instagram it looks so perfect. But that's like a perfectly curated gallery. So, we want to show like our best work. We don't want to like highlight our failures, but they happen. Like Logan was saying, like they definitely happen and we can learn from them. They are going to be our basically our foundation, our stepping stones for future success. And a big failure that I can think of is when I was first even before I was an illustrator, I was a graphic designer in the toy packaging world, and I was a contract designer. So basically, when you're a contractor, you don't have full-time benefits. You have like a set amount of time, usually like 6 months to a year where you're with a company. And then after that term is up, they let you go and then they hire you back on after a year. So I kept doing that with this major toy company. And my goal was to get hired on full time. So I was like, that was my end goal. Like, that's what I wanted to do. And like every year, I would renew my contract, but they wouldn't hire me on full time. So in 2019, I was pregnant and I had my daughter. So they basically told me, they're like, take some time off and like spend time with your daughter. And then when you're ready, like come back. So I was all ready to come back in spring of 2020 and I was ready to start. And then we all know what happened in March of 2020. There was a global pandemic. And so I got a phone call from them and they were like, you know what, like we had to let go all of our contractors. We have a hiring freeze. We're not hiring anybody right now. And, that was pretty devastating. And I think a lot of people kind of experienced that with me, where they lost their job and they didn't know kind of like where to go next. And, I was a new mom. And so I didn't have any kind of creative outlet. And I also thought, I'm like, well, there goes my career. Like I'm never going to get hired on full time. And so it was pretty devastating. So but because I had all that time to myself, that's when I really started to draw on the iPad and to explore and try new things and take new classes on Skillshare. And I learned how to hand letter and how to make patterns and how to create. And I was doing it just for fun. But then along the way, I realized like, wow, like I could really make a career out of this. And I think it was having like being forcibly removed from that and having to like switch directions. Really like that kind of, even though the pandemic was like horrible and it was, a horrible event, I felt like that kind of event was the only thing to like switch my direction. So, and I think about it, if that didn't happen, like, would I still trying to be like, get this full-time job, with this company? Like, would I still be working towards that goal? So, you know, and illustrating and working for myself, like, that's what I'm truly passionate about. And I think, like, I didn't even realize that until, you know, I lost my job. So anyway, and I know you're probably thinking like, well, this isn't like a failure. This was out of your control, but you know, it's hard. Like you always want to internalize, and it was like, oh, like, could I have done something better to like make it, you know, not happen? But yeah, it's that kind of like event that really like switches your focus and changes your direction.
Yeah, it's amazing, you know, these challenges and like, you know, Jess and I have both spoken to so many people who are in these positions, and things have changed for them over the last few years so much. And, you know, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse, but a lot of it has been a perspective shift, which I think is so interesting. So I love that, Jess. Thank you so much for sharing that piece. So the next one that we're going to jump into is really taking you through this idea of basically, you know, building your confidence through leaning into your strengths. Okay, so really focusing in on your strengths. And I heard this amazing concept once, which basically said, well, you can incrementally fix or get better at your weaknesses, right? So if you're a level 1 at something, you can get to a level 2, a level 3, level 4. You know, you work through them. Okay, so that's important. You do definitely need to work on some of those weaknesses and bring them up a notch. That can be part of the journey. But also you've got to lean into those strengths because they will multiply, right? So if you're a level 3 and you're really good at that thing, if you multiply it, right, it's kind of like you go from 3 to a 9 to a 20 to a 50. So the idea is to actually really focus on your strengths. And I'm going to give this really specific example around this when it comes to marketing, because this is something that comes up for a lot of our clients that we work with, is the challenges around marketing. And you read online and you hear from people, you've got to be everywhere. Got to be everywhere. You've got to do absolutely everything. You have to be on Instagram. You've got to be on LinkedIn. You've got to be on TikTok. You've got to be focused on doing outreach. You've got to be doing partnerships. You've got to be doing like all of these things, building relationships, connecting, networking. Running out of breath, right? Because actually, you're much better often focusing on some of these areas instead of trying to do everything, and more specifically, focusing on the areas that you're good at. Now, I'm not saying you're going to necessarily be great at some things initially. Sometimes you've got to lean in, you've got to experiment different forms of marketing, you've got to try some things out and gain some skills in them, because you might be like, oh, you know, I'm not the sort of person that enjoys social media. Well, have you tried? Have you learned how to use it to the extent that it can be used? So there's always a bit of experimentation, but once you find that strength, that way that you can build your business, you should really lean into it and really lean in a lot more, get a lot better at it. So, and you know, there's no like one way to market or build your creative business. There's actually lots of different ways. So for example, in our program, what we actually do in our 3-month program, we get really focused on helping people identify, yes, there's all these things they can do. Let's test a whole bunch of them out, but let's figure out what is going to be the core for you, and then what are going to be the supporting strategies, right? So we've got people on the program who it's Instagram, it's social media, right? That is their core thing. They lean into it, they get really good at it, they love it, they enjoy it, they're always trying to figure out new strategies. Yes, it gets frustrating for everyone, absolutely, right? And then we've got other people who are like, no, like, I actually don't really like that, and I struggle with social media. So actually we've got them leaning into something else. They might be really great at connecting with people. They might be really good, like in-person person. They've got a network, they've got friends, they've got family. They just seem to know people, right? So for them, it's more about those in-person connections. That could mean they could lean into partnerships. It could mean they could lean into networking. So for them, it would be quite a different approach. And then we've got other people on the program that for them, cold email outreach works. And they actually really enjoy it and they find it really fun, right? And some of you will be like, oh, it sounds like a nightmare. We've got people who are like, no, I'm good at it, I like it, and it works, right? So it's often really about going, okay, what are my strengths? How can I test things out and see where those strengths kind of start to pop up and go, that's interesting. I didn't realize I was, you know, good at that thing there, but I'm kind of okay. So then let's get great at it, rather than trying to get kind of mediocre at every type of marketing there is out there and trying to do everything and being overwhelmed and completely burnt out as a result. Instead, you're much better at getting more focused. Now, is this saying don't do the other things? No, well, not necessarily. You probably will still have a basic Instagram page if you're doing email outreach, because people you're emailing might be checking your Instagram. And if you're not doing anything there, well, you know, it might not look so good. So you don't need to be posting every other day or every day and doing lots of reels, but you still need to have something happening there. So it's the same with other forms. So once again, those that lean right into social media, they might not do much cold email marketing, but they could do some, right? They can test it out. They can see how it can support what they're doing. And maybe instead of sending cold emails, they're more doing DMs on Instagram, right? Maybe that's more the outreach strategy. So there's a lot of different ways here, but the core message is one way to really build your confidence is to get more focused around your marketing and really lean into those strengths as well. Awesome, Jess, I'll get you to share some thoughts around this too, because I know your journey's been super fascinating, the work we've done here this year on this.
Yeah. And I'm a big fan of like personality tests, and in Logan's program, you take the Myers-Briggs, and I've also taken the Strength Finders test, like on my own, which is basically like a personality test just about what your strengths are in the workplace. And so it was interesting, like one of my top strengths is a maximizer, and that basically means like you know what you're good at, and so you focus just on what you're good at. And that's totally true for me. Like I know I'm not good at math, I'm not good with numbers, so I hire like a tax accountant to do that for me and to take care of that, so I can create and I can work on the creative things. And I think I have like this natural knack for marketing. And so I lean into Instagram and I lean into that to really like promote myself. And another one of my strengths was empathy. And, at the time I was like, empathy, that's a strength. But then the more I thought about it, I was like, of course, empathy is a strength. Like I have this ability to like relate with other people and to connect. And I think that is so important in social media. Like it's all about making those connections and building that community. And I feel like that's like really what has helped my my Instagram grow.
Amazing. I love it. So good. And just seeing obviously the growth that you've had there this year from really leaning in is just so powerful as well. I absolutely love that. All right. So the next one we're going to take you through, the next thing to help build your confidence is all around this idea of actually having what we call actionable goals, right? So we talk about crafting out actionable goals that can actually help you build your confidence. So it's something that we do. It's actually a few of our clients here on the call, which is great. We do it right at the start of the program. Is we get focused on goals, right? What is it you actually want? And so many people, when they make goals, they make them pretty unattainable. Like it's impossible to know when you've reached that goal. And sort of one of the funny things I always say is like, you've got to know when to eat the cake. All right. So if you tick off one of your goals and you celebrate, you have a party, whatever it is, or you just go and get a big cake, how do you know when you can eat that cake? Right. So sometimes, and I say that to people, sometimes it's like, hey, so when are you going to eat the cake? How will you know that you've achieved that? And they're like, well, I guess I kind of will feel this way, maybe. Right. And it shouldn't really be based on feelings. It should be based on like, hey, I've hit this thing. Right. So the goals that you craft out, they really need to be something that is achievable, right? Something that you can be like, great, I've done it. I can tick the big box and I can go get a cake. Now I'm gluten-free and dairy intolerant. So for me, it's a gluten-free, dairy-free cake. And I would recommend maybe when you celebrate, just have one slice because it can be kind of full on. But it's as much as I joke about it, like it's a really important piece of it that a lot of people get wrong. They have goals that are often too vague or they're not specific. It's like, goal might be get better at marketing myself. Like, what does that mean? Right? Or get better at Illustrator. What does that even mean to you? Like, you need something where you can be like, great, I've got to this point, tick, I've done it, I'm eating the cake, rather than it kind of based off an arbitrary feeling that may or may not come up, right? So what it means is that you can actually move towards these goals in a more concrete way. And as you see yourself moving towards those goals, you'll feel more confident. Right? That's part of what we're talking about here, is confidence. Now, I'm going to share another really interesting side of goals, because something that I often recommend is like, cool, let's focus on 5 goals, but some of them should be like achievable based on where you're at now. You're like, cool, if I do these things consistently, I will get there. You know the path, you know the road. But then I love to encourage clients to actually have some goals which they don't know how to get there yet, right? Maybe it's a revenue goal, all right? And then they're like, Logan, based on my current projections, my current plan, my current roadmap, I don't know how I'm going to get there this year, right? You're allowed to have some goals like that because they will get you thinking bigger. They will get you stepping outside of your comfort zone. And a really important thing here is that goals are also about getting you moving and getting you taking action. All right. It's not always just about hitting the goal. It's about getting you moving towards something and taking action. right? So what are the actions you can take towards that? Now, sometimes some years for myself, some years I don't hit all of my goals, but usually I'll hit a few of them. I don't know if I've ever hit all of them, but either way, those goals, it helps me move towards those goals. And sometimes they'll pivot, they'll change during the year as well, but they at least get me started, get me moving, and get me taking action in a specific way, rather than going, oh, well, we'll see what happens and we'll see what opportunities come up. It's like, well, the world's probably going to push you around a bit and you're going to be kind of lost in the wilderness, instead of going, hey, like, actually, what are those markers that you're working towards? Yes, on the way, you might go off veer and go a different way, and that's actually okay, but you're moving. So really just wanted to give you that perspective around goals as well, and then I'll get Jess to share some thoughts around her process and journey around goals this year as well, because that's been super interesting.
Yeah, so a part of Logan's program, we crafted actionable goals, and we I think we formed like 5 that to complete in 6 months. And they were kind of lofty to begin with. I remember one was like, I wanted to make 10K a month. And then I remember we wrote those goals out, and then Logan was like, let's try for some stretch goals. Like, what happens if you could get 15K? And I was like, oh, like that. I mean, the first goal seems really hard. And so I think it's all about making them actionable. And it was every week just kind of chipping away at these goals and like checking them off. And I think, you know, even like the little things like add up to like, so where you can really like, okay, now I did complete that goal. I did check it off. And was kind of amazing. Like at the time, I didn't really think like I could do it. But after just chipping away at it, I think in 3 months, I checked off all my goals and then most of my stretch goals. So it's kind of amazing, like when you have a coach to kind of help guide you and give you that confidence in writing out these goals. It's kind of amazing, like what you're capable of and what you can achieve.
Yeah, and it's terrifying, right? It can be like, I just remember early on, Jess, like you were like, I don't know, like it's a terrifying process. And just, you know, our clients, there's some of them on the call here as well. I could see them like nodding away, going like, yeah, like it can be really terrifying setting those big goals at the start, right? So isn't it crazy how that works, Jess? It's just like terrifying.
It is, yeah. And I think it's just really important to push yourself too, because like, you know, a lot of the times I was like, oh, I don't think I could do that. Or like even like pricing myself. I'm like, oh, like that client is going to balk at that price. Like I can't, you know, I can't do that. But then Logan was like, I don't know. I think you can push them. Like they're a big company. They have money. I think you can push them. And so, you know, there's been times where I was like, okay. And then I did it. And lo and behold, they accept the offer and it's like, oh, this is great. So I feel like I've really gotten more confidence in like pricing myself and like adding value so that, you know, the client, they know what they're going to get and they know like the value that they're going to get from it.
I love that. So powerful. All right, let's keep moving on because we've got a couple more really good things and then we're going to dive into some questions at the end as well. So the next one that I'm going to jump into is around community. So community is such an important piece of building your confidence because like it is really isolating. Because those, I can see quite a few on video. You can put your hand up if you find this journey isolating, trying to grow your own business sometimes. Give us a bit of a wave, right? A few hands going, there we go, right? It can be seriously isolating and pretty scary trying to grow your own business, right? Many of us are, you know, working from home, or some people work from cafes, whatever that is. Like it's very, very isolating. And this is, of course, COVID has added to some of those things, but also even pre-COVID, it could be quite isolating as well. And, you know, we talk about people who are solo business owners, like most creative people that I'm working with that are in our programs, they are, it's just them, right? So it can be so isolating and really hard. So a really essential part of building your confidence is to building community into your business and your day as well, right? So there's lots of different ways to do this. I'm going to share a few thoughts around this, but you know, for example, on my own journeys, right? So I run my business fully remotely. I usually spend a month in each location, often between Europe and the US, and occasionally New Zealand. But you know, the key here is like, how do I add on the fact that I'm traveling so much to having community? So I've had to identify ways to connect with people, right? So I'm part of a couple of travel communities, and I've also got some other amazing friends who live a very similar lifestyle, right? So at the moment, I'm actually here, I'm living with some friends here for a month. It's amazing, it's great. That's part of my community. But then no matter where you are in the world, there's also plenty of opportunities to build community online as well, right? There's tons of online communities you can be part of. Maybe that is getting on Zoom and connecting with them. Maybe it's having an accountability buddy, right? Another awesome visual creative who is also at a similar point in their journey that you connect with every week or two on Zoom. Maybe you message back and forth as well, right? Because having other people next to you on this journey is going to help you build your confidence. And when you have those days where you're feeling down or you've got big challenges or you've made those mistakes, you've got someone else to give you perspective. Right, and something that I, we've run over the years is retreats. So I didn't mention that before, but I was running retreats on volcanoes, and also we have our entrepreneur retreats. So those of you that know Kat and I ran a retreat in France and then Spain this year, and next year we're running one in Morocco. Part of the reason we run them is to bring people together in person to form community. And the group that came to our France retreat last year, our France entrepreneur retreat, they still connect, they still catch up pretty frequently. And at the moment they're doing an Instagram challenge together. It's really, really cool. So, seeing people connecting, even within our current program, we've got a community element as well, right? So in the 3 months, people in our program get to connect with other people, other creatives. And we're seeing collaborations happening. We're also just seeing people sharing the journey as well, which is so, so important. So, I think the key here is that community is an essential part of building your confidence up, because you've got to have these people around you. Now, obviously, it's ideal to have people around you in person, but it's amazing what you can achieve through online connections and relationships as well. Having someone or people to reach out to check over where you're at, or to listen. Sometimes it's just someone to talk to and basically sharing the journey as well. So, just really want to encourage you to think about where your community level is at now, and what else could you do to bring in a bit more community into your life? Because sometimes we think growing our creative business is all about learning more about this or getting better at our craft. Like, yes, those are parts of it, but also surrounding yourself by the right people is going to have a huge benefit as well. Right, so putting those spending more time with the right sort of people, ideally they're positive people, they're encouraging, they're very supportive. That's going to really help you lift you up a lot, and that's the sort of stuff that's also going to help your business grow as well. So we'll get Jess to share a few thoughts around community, because it's definitely been part of her journey in a very big way as well. So over to you, Jess.
Yeah, community is everything. And, like Logan said, like it can be very isolating, like running your own business and working from home. Like, I'm a one-woman show. I do all of my commission work, and then I run my own Instagram page. And then on top of that, I'm a mom and I have a family. So yeah, it can be a lot, but yeah, lean into the community. And a great way is just like even joining groups on Instagram and participating in their artist challenges and hosting your own. Like I recently teamed up with like 4 really talented artists for the Spooky and Sweet challenge that we did in October. It was all like Halloween themed art, and it was super fun to just connect with these artists and then hear everybody's feedback. That they said how much they loved the challenges, and they loved our our collaboration. And it's fun just to collaborate with other artists. So community is huge, and I'm a big supporter of community over competition. So that's huge, because that's where like your support is within your community.
So powerful. Thank you so much. Yes, it's just so great to to see how people's experiences of community have really helped them as well, helped them grow within their businesses. All right, so next piece. So this is actually the final piece we're going to share, and then we are going to jump into some questions. So if you've got questions, we've already had a couple sent in already. So if you have got questions, you can either start adding them to the chat now if you like. Could be questions around confidence, could be around creative business in general, could be to myself, could be to Jess, could be to us both. So feel free to add things into the chat there. Cool. So the final point we're going to share is a really interesting one, because I think a lot of people will be able to relate to it, which is the challenges around imposter syndrome. All right. So a lot of people feel this. They feel like they are not good enough. Right. And I think almost every single client I've ever worked with at all sorts of different levels feels it to some degree. Now, this is actually something that is blocking your confidence. It's a negativity. Often it's an inner voice that we have, which sort of says, oh, Logan, why are you doing this? You shouldn't be, you're not good enough, right? We have that inner critic, that inner voice, okay? And it's very, very common. And the first thing I'll share about this is it's good to understand it is common. Most people I speak to about it feel like it's just them. Now, there's a reason for this. So, and Jess even just kind of shared a piece of this earlier on, which is obviously on Instagram, for example, you're seeing the A-reel, right? You're seeing all the wins, you're seeing the good stuff, you're seeing the best art, you're seeing the celebrations, the success, the partnerships, all of those good things, right? But you're not seeing all of the other stuff. So what actually happens is you feel like you're on your journey, but then all these other people are like just doing amazing things and you're way behind, right? You're comparing yourself to where they're at, right? And it can, as Jess said, it actually can feel competitive, but it should be collaborative instead. Right now, the fascinating thing is behind the scenes of all of those people, they're all having the same struggles as well, right? They're probably thinking very similar things to you. And it kind of makes sense when you think about it, but we forget this when we're in it, when we're thinking in that negative mindset, when we're thinking in that scarcity mindset and going, I just don't think I'm good enough. Now, something really interesting around this is that how are you going to get better anyway? Like, how are you going to get better? How are you going to get through this imposter syndrome? Well, you're going to get out there and do stuff, right? Like, because the biggest thing with imposter syndrome is it stops you taking action. You just go, what's the point? I might as well just sit at home and do nothing, right? What's the point? That's what imposter syndrome is telling you to do. Now, even if you do need to get better and do need to improve, the way to do it is not to sit around, it's to actually take action, right? So that's the biggest piece of it, is actually taking action. When I say action, it does not need to be big actions, right? We think about action as like getting out there and doing this massive thing and it changes my whole business. It's like, no, like a lot of actions that you can take towards your goals are small incremental things that you can do each day or each week, right? Some of them don't even take that long, but there's always things that you can do. Taking action actually will build your confidence and take you away from that imposter syndrome, because you'll go, oh, wow, I'm getting some stuff done. I'm moving forward, even those small things. Sometimes even on our program, we're going, cool, let's break this down rather than the big things. What are the really small things? What's one thing you can do in the next week that's going to take 15 minutes, that's going to help you take you forward? Because you ticking that off is going to build your confidence. It's going to block some of that imposter syndrome as well. And it's going to help you feel a bit better. And that'll help you take more action. And it'll help you take extra actions within your business as well. So, this whole idea of the Instagram perfection, it's certainly there. It is one of the challenges. We don't always get to see behind the scenes of what people are actually doing and how they're necessarily making money. What are the challenges they're having? But also just referencing some of the other stuff that we've covered as well, talking about failure. Right. So obviously when you fail, it's very easy to feel like I'm an imposter, right? Failed, I'm an imposter. And now Logan's going, well, you're going to fail. Everyone's going to fail to some extent. Failure is going to happen. Actually, they're the opportunities to learn. They're the opportunities to grow. They're the opportunities to get away from being someone who feels this negativity, feels this imposter syndrome as well. And there's another piece of this I'm going to share because I think this is fascinating. It's kind of related to me talking about cake, and it's celebrating wins. Okay, so one way to really move away from that imposter syndrome is to celebrate wins. And when I say celebrate wins, I'm talking about small wins, big wins, medium wins, wins that do matter, wins that don't matter. Okay, celebrating positive, good things that are happening. It's actually something we have a community call every week as part of our program. And at the start, we get 3 people to share some wins, right? And there's no judgment on whether it's like, making this money or signing up this client or selling this thing. That's not what it always is. Sometimes it's just like, hey, you know what? Like, I got out of bed today and I took some action and I did something, right? Great, it's a win. We do a big round of applause at a circle, we have some fun. But that stuff is so important because it's actually boosting your confidence. So celebrating wins is one of the easiest ways to boost your confidence, even small wins, right? Oh man, you know what? I got up and I did yoga this morning. Great, that's a win. There we go. That there is going to make you feel good and it's going to help you take more action. It's going to block some of that imposter syndrome as well. Really, really important. Jess, do you want to share a few thoughts around this stuff as well?
Yeah, basically, to add on to what Logan's saying, like, I think any action is better than no action, right? And I remember a lot of times, like, we would write out these goals, and like one of my goals for me was just to complete and publish a Skillshare class. And, you know, that's pretty broad, pretty lofty goal. And, you know, it was like my first, teaching my first class, and, you know, it was kind of daunting, but Logan helped me break it down. He was like, okay, like this week, let's work on your outline. So outline your class. And then, you know, the next week it's like, you know, let's break down equipment and what you need to prep you for filming. And so it was like, let's, you know, schedule this as a filming week. And then, you know, send everything off to the editor. You know, it was just kind of breaking things down so that it made it much more easier to complete that goal. And even like when I didn't know what I was doing, Logan would just say, take imperfect action, because, you know, any action is better than just staying still and not getting it done. And Logan also touches on celebrating your wins, which I think is huge. And like a lot of us, we feel like, oh, like, was that a win? Like, I don't know, like, you know, it's so small, like, should I really be celebrating? But it's like, yes, of course. Like, you know, any win, like big or small, you should celebrate. And other times we think like, oh, I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, but really, like, I love to hear wins from other artists, and I love to support them too. Like when they say like, you know, I'm so proud, like my greeting card is in Target, and then I'll go and find it and take a picture and like post it on my Instagram because I'm proud of them and I want to share like, you know, my success of like my friends. So I think it's really, and people love to hear those success stories. You know, it really, it helps give them confidence. It helps inspire them. So it's definitely, don't forget to celebrate your wins.
Amazing. I love that. So powerful. So I can see we've got a question there, Karen, already around this. So we will jump into that soon. Look, we are going to jump into Q&A time. So if you do have questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. Hey, look, just before we do that, I'm going to share something you might have seen on the original invite or email, Instagram invite for this. So as part of this here, I'm going to be giving away 5 freebie coaching calls. They're 30-minute calls, one-on-one with me. It's something that I absolutely love to do. I'd always love to do more, but obviously time is always tight. So look, if this is something that you're interested in, I'd love to connect with you. What we're going to do, I'm just going to share in the chat now, just a link there. This is basically a form to a quick survey. It takes 5 to 10 minutes, and that's the way to apply. If you're interested in being on one of those calls, you know, feel free to open that now. You don't need to fill it in right now. You can do it after this call. That's totally fine. But fill that survey in, and then, you know, I'll be selecting 5 people for those freebie call giveaways. And they're a great way to connect, get some extra ideas, tips, answer your questions, all those good things as well. And the other thing we will do, we'll make sure we send that link out afterwards. So if you end the call, you're like, I didn't get a link, that's totally right. Jess and I will both send that out. So you might get an email from both of us there within that as well. So, you know, obviously if you're watching the recording, we would love you to enter that as well. So feel free to check that out. So what we're going to dive into now, as I mentioned, is Q&A. So we're actually going to start here with Karen. Hopefully I've pronounced your name okay there. Then we're going to dive into, I've got a couple of questions that people sent in, and then we'll dive into other questions. We'll just see how we go for time, and we'll cover as much as we can. So I think this question here is great in the chat. What are some examples of smaller actions? I'd love to know, because it's so easy to get overwhelmed. Totally, right? So this is something that a lot of people struggle with, is overwhelm. Right? It's something that almost all of our clients have as well. It can be very overwhelming because we're hearing we have to do this, we have to do that. There's all these tactics. We've got to also fit in maybe our day job and our family and our friends. And also we've got to be posting on Instagram, and like, it can be a lot. So you are right in that, you know, Jess shared a really great example around, you know, the Skillshare course is really just breaking it down. So one of the biggest mistakes I see is that people call a project in action. So they put in action as build a website or update my website. That is not an action, that's a project, right? That can be broken down into a whole lot of smaller actions, right? So if you're building your first website, or even if you're updating a website, it might be draft about page. That might be one action. Or it might be brainstorm ideas for about page. Right, that could be an action. Or it could be find some photos that you can use on your about page. Right, these are really breaking it down. And like actions, you know, often should take 5 to 30 minutes. Maybe sometimes they're always just 10, 15 minutes. You want to break things down further, because often you are trying to fit it in, you haven't got lots of time, but really breaking things a lot further down. So, you know, there's an example around the website, but for example, if we're getting, you know, clients more focused on their Instagram, it's like, some people posting on Instagram or creating a reel can be really overwhelming. So actually the first step might be brainstorm 5 ideas that you could post about. right? It could be one step. Another step could be come take some images or get some imagery that you can use. Right. And then another step might be brainstorm the caption. What can you write in the caption? So really breaking it down, particularly when you feel that overwhelm. Because what often happens is you've got your big list of stuff to do, huge list, and you look at it, it's this big, huge list, and your conscious and your subconscious mind just goes, nah, no way, right? Too much, too overwhelming, too intense. I'm just not going to do anything. So instead, it's much better to go, okay, let's break it right down. What's one thing that I can do right now? And if you keep focusing on those small things in the coming weeks and months, in 3 to 6 months' time, you will be absolutely blown away by how far you've come. Right? Often people think, what we can achieve in a day almost feels like we can't get anything in a day sometimes, anything done in a day. But actually, when it's built up over time, it's amazing what can actually happen as well. Cool, awesome. We've got some other questions popping up. So I might hand this one over to you, Jess, there from Liz. So I'll read that out for you. You gained a pretty large following in a impressively short amount of time. What would you attribute that success to? Do you want to share about that? And then I'll jump into the next questions.
Yeah, I mean, I teach courses on how to leverage Instagram for your creative business. So I know a thing or two about Instagram, and a big part that I tell people is the community. And it's, just being actively engaged and following other artists and commenting on their stuff and being active about it, like not just waiting for somebody to like comment on your work, but actually going to their page, searching them out, asking questions, and just really like engaging and building is huge. And so a lot of that, and also building Instagram is really just like adapting with how it evolves and changes. And a huge part of that was reels. And I know a lot of my artist friends feel like intimidated by it. And they're like, oh, I don't want to create a reel, or I don't know how to relate to it. So they just don't post it. They don't post a reel at all. But, I really leaned into the challenge, and I was like, how can I make reels like work for me? And so I just shared my art process, and that really like related to my audience, and it was what they like to watch. I'm not up there like dancing and like pointing at words and like doing silly things like that, just because like that's not me, but I can like share my art process. And so I think that was a huge part of growing a following on Instagram, was just adapting with those changes and just really leaning into it like 110%.
Love it. So powerful to hear. So I'm going to jump into to Ellen. I think you're here. Yeah, you are here, Ellen. So thanks for sending that question in. That's awesome. So Ellen basically shared, Logan, Jess, what's one thing you'd recommend to move the needle quickly if you're just starting your business, right? So you're just starting your creative business from square one, you're at that early stage. What are the things, what's the one thing you'd recommend? So I was like, oh, I've got more than one, but I'm going to focus on one for you. So I think everyone will be really interested in this here. Look, I've kind of mentioned it already. You've got to get really clear on what you want. Okay, because people are like, oh, well, I want to start a creative business. And I'm like, okay, well, why? What is the driver behind this? So that's where you getting really clear on the why and the what behind that, and using that to craft those goals. Like, it's frustrating as that is the piece to start with, right? It's like, what are my five goals? Right now, they might be imperfect goals. They might not be amazing. Try and use the SMART goals process. Those of you that don't know about SMART goals, it's an acronym, SMART for SMART. Look that up and see if that's something that you can really lean into. It's something that we teach right at the start of our program, because it is so essential. Because I could give you advice, Ellen, on what to do, but it's got to be around what you need, right? And it's going to be around your goals as well. So that's something to get very clear on, is why are you doing this? What is the reason? And then what are the things that you want? Because for some people, like the common things that I hear are like, I want to be my own boss, right? That comes up. I want to be more creative in my own time, right? I'm going to do more creative stuff. Then the other thing that comes up is, I would like to have a higher revenue ceiling, of like being able to earn more, right? And then other things come into flexibility, freedom, all of those good things. But for different people, they have different focuses. Like I had a client who started with me a couple of years ago, who, she was just like, Logan, I just need to get out of my day job as soon as possible, right? That was what was the top of her list, right? So that meant that she then got focused on, how do I get freelance work as soon as possible? Maybe it's not the most creative stuff. maybe I'm not crazy excited about it, but she was like, I would pretty much do any type of my creative freelance work with any type of clients to get away from this job, right? So for her, the strategy was different. Whereas with some people, they're like, oh, well, no, I don't want to do this sort of work, but I would love to do this sort of work here. So it might be completely different. So for you and for everyone here who's thinking about this, getting really clear and taking that step back, what is the why? What are the goals? What are the reasons for this? And then you can actually help craft those next steps from there. Love it. Awesome. Hope that's been helpful there, Alan. So what we'll jump into next is from Yelena. So what are some of the things you used to do but don't do anymore because they are useless? Things that you thought are necessary but turned out to be time wasters. Or just might have
I
some
can
thoughts
answer
here.
this
Yeah,
if
go
you,
for it.
if you like. Okay. Actually, I thought about this because I used to be a toy package designer, and I don't really do package design anymore. And sometimes I think I'm like, wow, did I waste like 14 years of my career, like, in toy package design, like before I like found what I really am passionate about and what I really love. And it's like, of course not. Like that's not like a time waster. I think that was just kind of like that built my experience, right? I mean, when I was working that job, I was kind of on the flip side. Like I was the art director and I was art directing illustrators, but it's like I secretly wanted to be the illustrator that actually got to create the work. So I think it's only just really like prepared me for the kind of client work that I have today. So now it's like I have a really good understanding of what art directors want and what they're looking for because I had that experience. Like I had that like 14 years of experience. So I'm like a strong believer that things happen for a reason. And so don't ever think that like it was a waste of time, because I think everything can be a learning lesson, even if it doesn't seem like that at the time. Like looking back on it, it really is.
So powerful. I think that's such an awesome perspective there as well. And just it's so interesting that the challenges that we all have early on as well, and the experiences we kind of just have to go through to get to where we want to go, which I think is important too. Hey, I've got another question that was sent in here. So from Daksha, I'm not sure if you're here or not. You might be watching the recording, but Daksha shared, how do you streamline multiple passions and not without getting confused or burnt out? And I think this is such an interesting thing. I feel like, okay, we need to start another whole webinar on this topic because it's so interesting. Because as like you're all creative people here, right? And one of the biggest challenges with being creative is that you're creative. You've got a lot of different ideas. You've got a lot of different passions. Now, I'll say, yeah, sure, that could be a challenge. That's how some people put it. It's actually your superpower, really, is that you're a highly creative person and that your mind thinks in highly creative ways. So that's why it is so important that you harness this creativity, but you've got to find that balance. So often what we see early on when we start working with people is they've got like 50 ideas. They're like, I could do this, I could do this, I'm already doing that, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing this here, I'm doing this. And I'm like, well, okay, they're doing a lot, right? So often what we've got to do really early on is help them to narrow things down, at least for a short amount of time. Okay, we're not saying you have to just do these things forever. It could only just be for the next 3 to 6 months. Let's get more focused on usually 2 to 3 to 4 areas of what they offer. So I'm talking about products and services. Now, as you grow, as you learn more about business, as you gain knowledge in these different areas, and you build more of a following, and you create more earnings, and you get your time back by leaving your job, then options can open up. But it's not straight away. You don't want to try and do all of the different things here. So even just what Daksha is sharing here is like, how do we streamline these multiple passions? Well, first of all, it's going, cool, which are the top 3 that we want to focus on first? And it might even be the top couple. Okay, and you might be like, no, but I don't want to give up this other awesome passion I have. And you're not giving up anything, don't worry. Like maybe you're just going to put 10% of your energy into that thing for the next few months while you focus on these other areas, right? So for example, Daksha was talking about being in the greeting card space for 2 years and then trying to get more into the surface pattern design sort of area, right? And there's different challenges, of course, with any types of businesses, but one of the things that I often see is that if you don't have a huge following, you kind of need to be able to have some offerings that you can sell for kind of a higher price point. right? So those clients that are here on the program now, they're like, yeah, I remember we talk about this a lot. The idea is it's kind of like you want something to sell for like $500 plus. Okay, next to the other things that you've got, whether that is products, whether it's licensing, whether it's print on demand, whether, you know, it could be all sorts of different things. You still want to have at least something that you can sell at this higher price point. Right now, you know, I work with a few people with these higher followings. Now for them, they can technically do some of these lower price point things because they've got a much bigger following. Even then, they still will usually have a percentage of the energy going towards more of a like freelance type thing, right? Where they're, you know, they're building that up on the side. So even if you have a huge audience, you still would have a portion of something, a freelancer, more of a premium time-based thing often while you build things early on. And I talk to people sometimes and they're like, no, but Logan, I don't want to do that. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. We've just got to realize that the journey for you is going to be quite long. And are you willing to stay in your day job for the next 3 years while we build up these lower price offerings on the side? Now, there's nothing wrong with that, right? If that's what you want to do, like, that's totally fine. But actually, most people then go, no, I don't want to do this for the next 3 years. I want to be self-employed full time. I want to be creative in my own time. So it's really going, okay, well, maybe they can focus in these areas, have a bit of freelance as well. Maybe 50% of the energy is on that more freelance stuff, and then the other 50% on these maybe more scalable types of income, whether that's their products, whether it's the licensing, those sorts of things. So yeah, that's quite an eye-opening thing for a lot of people. But when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense, because how many small items do you need to sell to make reasonable revenue, even to make $1,000, right? You have to sell a lot of $5 to $50 items every single month as well, and it's hard. Whereas whilst you build that following, you learn more about business, you can actually, you know, you can actually still have revenue coming in, and you can use this as a tool to learn. The one other piece I'll share about this is kind of interesting, which is basically that the biggest challenge I see is that there's amazing creative people out there who are highly talented who struggle with the business stuff. Right? This is why part of why I do what I do is I love to balance, you know, between the two. So for a lot of people, they're highly creative and they've got these creative passions and they're trying to make them work, whether it's the surface pattern design, whether it's the greeting cards or whatever it is. And they're like, why is this not working? Even they're freelancing, they're frustrated. Why is it not working? Maybe I'm not that good. Imposter syndrome, boom, there we go again. Confidence drops. Now, what I say is often it's because not enough people know you exist. It's actually business stuff. It's marketing stuff, right? So it's a really, really interesting area within that. We are going to answer one more question. I'll get you to take this one here, Jess, if that's cool, that last one there around balancing time, because I think this is an interesting one. And then we'll be wrapping up after that as well. I'll let you take that one, Jess.
I'm not gonna lie, that's my biggest struggle. And I remember like on my one-on-one coaching calls with Logan, he's always like, what's your biggest struggle? Like, it's always like work-life balance. And for me, it's like, I'm a mom and I'm also trying to run my own business, and my daughter's in daycare and she is sick all the time. And it's like, how I can't even, like, every other week she comes home with a cold and she has to stay with me. It's like, how do I get my work done? You know, there was like a lot of like very stressful moments, and Logan really coached me through it. You know, he was like, let's just break this down. He's like, I know you have a lot on your plate, but it's like, what can you get done today? And then what can you put off tomorrow? And then he also told me, he's like, you know, be honest with the clients and just ask them maybe if you can push out the timeline a bit. And, you know, I have, and I've almost like predicted it, because I'll, you know, if there's a tight timeline and the client needs to get this done next week, you know, I will be open and honest with them, and I'll tell them like, hey, like, I do run my own creative business, but I'm also a mom. You know, my daughter's sick all the time. I just want to prep you that she may be home with me. I may not be able to complete this, you know, in the allotted time. Can we push it out, you know, just a few days? Give me, you know, some breathing space. 9 times out of the 10, they usually are completely understanding, and, you know, they're able to like be flexible and work with me. But you just kind of have to ask and just to kind of, you know, be in a much comfortable position, I think, in asking than not being able to deliver. And then, you know, like time elapses and then you feel like, you know, you weren't able to complete the task. So I think just really like breaking it down and just being open and honest has just really helped me kind of balance my work life.
Amazing. I love it. Cool. So we're going to be wrapping up in the next minute or two, everyone. So I've just shared again that link for the freebie coaching call. If that's something you're interested in, fill in that survey, take 5 or 10 minutes within that. We'll send it out afterwards as well. But feel free to open that now so you've got it there. Look, we're really passionate about the subject of confidence because it is the thing that is connected to everything in your business. Right? Yes, it's connected to your creativity, but it's also connected to you actually trying to make a living from this and charging what you want and all of those good things as well. So what we would love to do just to wrap up is to get everyone to share one takeaway from today. What's been one thing that you've found interesting, useful, helpful? Maybe it was a question that you got answered, or maybe you're surprised about something. If everyone can write one thing in the chat, that would be amazing. We always love to see what the takeaways people have are, just as we start to wrap up in the next minute or two. Jess, perhaps we both add our Instagram links in there as well, because I know some people might have wanted to follow us. There's that one there. Cool. Awesome. So just while you're grabbing yours, Jess, I'll read these out. So I love that. Heather, great to see you, Heather. Always so helpful, you too. Thanks so much. Creativity is my superpower. Absolutely. I love that. Collaboration is key. Nice, Liz. Yeah, absolutely. Take imperfect actions. Small steps are better than nothing. Absolutely, Phil. Everyone feels like an imposter. It's not just me. Absolutely, Phil. Good to see you again. Alan, yep, thanks for answering the question. No problem. Love that. That was a great question. Do one small thing, Janet. Fantastic, amazing. I need to find a community with other creatives. Community. Love that. Charity sharing a bit about streamlining passions. I see in dance of narrowing focus and then broadening out again, narrowing in again. Yeah, you're right. It is kind of, it changes over time as well. Elena, community in action. Get really clear on what you want, the why, the reason, the wants. Sharon, yes, absolutely. Sam, community is key. Celebrate your wins. Thank you for the webinar. Thank you. Absolutely. Anna is also sharing set achievable goals and be clear on what you want. Amazing, everyone. Hey, so lovely to connect with everyone. This has been an absolute blast. We're going to wrap things up, but just wanted to thank you for coming along. It's been an awesome one to run with you as well. Again, Jess too. Lots of fun. So we'll wrap things up there and say goodbye, everyone. Fantastic. Awesome. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
See you, everyone.